Yeah, thank you.
Oh, sorry, Clay. I was talking to the guys here. We're just trying to get ready. Be just a second. Sorry about that.
No problem.
You ready, Lyman? Okay. Awesome. We're live, Anne Marie.
Okay, we'll have good morning, everybody. We have a work session this morning, so I have probably about three items to discuss and go ahead and we have Mr. Commissioner Adams here and myself. So we'll go ahead and open the work session at this time. Mr. McDonald.
Absolutely. Okay, so the first one we're going to discuss is the Attorney's Office reorganization discussion. This one is, this is a long time coming. It actually started back with Kendall as we looked at the overall structure of our attorney's office based on the needs, the caseload that's prevalent there. One of the things that we recognize, and we kind of discussed it at the budget session in November, December, about the workload that's increased in that area. About that same time is when we authorized the hiring of additional personnel in that office. So an additional attorney. At that time, we had Kendall, you had Alex, and you had Brittany who hired on there. And so we had kind of three attorneys, and then we've also had the legal assistant in there. One of the things that we had looked at, one of the recommendations from the attorney's office is reclassifying the position of legal assistant to more of a functional position. In just the legal assistant, there wasn't a lot of tasks that we can assign to her without exceeding her job description. And so as we looked at that, it's kind of more of a paralegal, what we're hoping to change that position to more of a legal secretary, paralegal, where we can actually, instead of just answering the phones and doing some of the minor items, actually task that position with additional assignments, more of a paralegal role where they can actually file cases, track cases, so a little bit more active. There's an opportunity with the employee there within that position itself to take on more responsibility and more of a role at a lower cost than hiring an additional employee. That would take kind of reconverting or converting that position to more of that legal secretary, legal paralegal type position. And so that's kind of a common, we're kind of a little bit abnormal in that classification. When we looked at comparisons with other counties, they have more of a legal secretary, not a legal assistant. We didn't feel that the attorneys needed assistance to be under them. It was more somebody in general that Brittany and Alex both can give the information to her. She could file the cases, work the docket. I don't know how it's, there's a software program that they file their cases, submit all of their cases to. Brittany, step in if I flip this up any, but she could take on more of that role instead of the attorneys right now are the ones that are doing that. And so it'll relieve them of some of the administrative functions, the inner workings within that department, puts it on this position. It pays, obviously there's a pay increase that would have to come with that to get it to that point. So that's one of the changes that we're recommending in that reorganization. The other one is really about how we hire attorneys with the vacancies that's been created. We haven't started recruiting, and we had mentioned during the budget decision that we would start recruiting for another attorney position to fill the vacancies that's in that office now. One of the things and you've seen it during the application process of trying to find a county attorney, there's not a lot of county attorneys here in the county, and so it's how do we attract and recruit an attorney into the county? And we think that the best way that we can come up with to do that is to try to create a position that has a career ladder that is a step type system and we've done it similar to, our building inspector. The building inspector will hire somebody on fresh out of school. They don't have any building inspection certifications, but as they certify to certain levels, then we give them a bump in pay because now they've reached that level. Similar with attorneys, if we hired some of the ideas that we had, if we were to hire somebody fresh out of school, once they pass the bar exam, you get them in here. But to get them to stay, we're going to have to bump them in a career path type system to where, after a couple of years of experience, they accelerate up to an attorney 2 position or attorney 3 position. So kind of create this career ladder, career mobility to keep them to stay longer. I think typically what we see in county attorneys, if you're not advancing them with everybody else, they become so attractive with their experience, the years of experience, and the education that they're easy to pick off because we don't pay as well. And so it's how do we get them to an equitable position? And when I talk about equitable, I'm not talking about Salt Lake City equitable. I'm talking about just this region, like we do all of our other comps. It's making sure that position remains equitable with years of experience in here in the county so that they don't get picked off, so we don't continue to have a revolving door. The attorney's function, I think, is one of those that you want to have longevity. You want to have some tenure with those positions, and to get that tenured in that organization, we would have to make sure that we're paying them equitably here. We'll never be able to compete with Salt Lake prices. We understand that. We recognize that fact, as well as the attorney's office. They also see that as well. When it comes to funding, well, how would we fund this? I've asked Brittany, and Alex has taken a look at what the impact is from tourism on their caseload. There is a significant caseload that comes from tourists that are here that get pulled over in our system that we have to process through. And so there is a logical argument that can be had by using TRT funds for mitigation. And that was kind of what we looked at when we chose to hire the part-timer, Brittany's position originally, was let's use TRT, that mitigation of that, where it's kind of all falls under the realm of law enforcement, to fund the position. And we think that we can continue to do that and just have those steps with it. But we wanted to present it to you before we start to make any changes, any movements in that organization, to see if there were any concerns that you guys had. I think coming down the road, there's going to be more as we see their caseload increase. Unfortunately, during COVID, you would hope that legal load would decrease. Well, it hasn't. It's actually almost doubled in caseload during COVID, just because of the nature of the beast. Also, just bear in mind that we do now, with the judgment back in Oklahoma, there's a lot of work that has to be done on that aspect of it. Now, do we, on the Navajo Nation, have to protect, prosecute, defend those individuals that are non-Native American that are now policed down south on the reservation lands? That's something we still haven't figured out, but that could also add to the workload. Whereas before, like a Goldings incident with a tourist, that may go into the BIA, so the Indian police would take care of that. That, because of that ruling in Oklahoma, may not may no longer be the case. We still trying to figure out how to work that system down south, but that may bring additional cases to their workload that wasn't typically there in the past. Brittany, am I missing anything on there or anything that you would like to add?
Like to give us a brief on the Oklahoma case?
Oh, Brittany, you want to do that? I could. Yeah, I don't know enough.
Prepared for that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I could do that at a time. I've looked at the Oklahoma case, but it's not fresh on my mind right now of the actual rulings and what it means for us. So I can look at that and bring it to you.
I can understand the layman's term, but
Yeah.
from legal perspective, that's what I want.
So my understanding on there was that the Supreme Court ruling, the case was jurisdiction. Who had jurisdiction, whether the state of Oklahoma or the tribal lands? Who had jurisdiction? And the Supreme Court ruled that the state of Oklahoma had jurisdiction over certain elements. It's not all that Oklahoma State didn't have jurisdiction over the tribes themselves, but the state does have jurisdiction over non-Native Americans on tribal lands. And so that ruling switches to where everything in the past for us here on the Navajo Nation was tried and prosecuted and defended there on the Navajo Nation. So if a non-Native American was arrested down on the Navajo Nation courts dealt with them. Now, the state of Utah, because of that case, the state of Utah would have jurisdiction over non-Native Americans that committed crimes and on the Navajo Nation. And so with that, we've never had that type of jurisdiction or policing. It's always been left up to the Navajo Indian Police to do that. And so we've reached out to the Attorney General's office to ask them, okay, what does that ruling mean now? We've also, one of the things we've got to do is set up a meeting with President Nez on the Navajo Nation to try to figure out, okay, what do they want us to do with this new information in this new case? And what does the AG's office with the Navajo Nation also see? And so we need to marry those two together and see what is the outcome. How do we work and operate within this new case law that came out, pushing jurisdiction back to the states on tribal lands for non-Native Americans.
And that'll have to happen with Arizona and New Mexico
Everyone.
and possibly Colorado as well.
Yeah. Yep.
They'll all have to react
Yes. Yep.
to this ruling by the Supreme Court.
Yeah, and that just happened a couple of weeks ago, a month, maybe a month and a half. So it's still new. We sent Alex and Brittany their office has sent off emails to the state attorney general's office to try to figure out, okay, what do you guys think needs to take place? And everyone's still trying to figure out how that plays out. And so I know Commissioner Grice, you had mentioned that there's different situations, whether it's a Native American on Native American, and then a Native American on a non-Native American, and who is responsible for that jurisdiction, because there's different levels, whether it's a non-Native American and Native American offense, then that's supposed to be tried in Utah. Whereas if it's a Native American on a non-Native American, then that still stays within the tribe. And then if it's a non-Native,
I don't think that's right, Mac. I think if a Native American commits a crime on state or county or land off of the reservation, they'll be prosecuted by the county attorney.
Correct.
Right.
That is true. But on the in the Navajo Nation itself, and that's just in the Navajo Nation, those rules have changed.
Okay.
And that's what we've got to try to figure out, because I know Commissioner Gray and I, we were speaking one day about that, and there's just those different levels that we've got to figure out of how to police that, who has jurisdiction over what.
Is that really something that that the county commission gets involved in, or is that the attorneys, the county attorney and
State
the
of
AG's
Utah.
office has to make that decision?
Yeah, it's more of the state of Utah's AG.
I think we have to start there and kind of see what they say, see what the Navajo Nation wants us to do, kind of get their take on it as well, and then
There's cases like LaFont's case up in Washington. That type of situation where Native American committing onto state land, that type of situation. Montana case, that's on the federal government highway, and the Indian, non-Indian, how does those jurisdictions apply? So then the other one is Nevada versus Higgins. Not too long ago, where the chairman of the tribe allowed federal government to come in on the reservation, investigate, search and seizure type, and that was a heated. It went to the Supreme Court also. So those are some of the cases. They are similar, but in this case, the report came in. I listened to it, and the guy that's discussing the issue was that jurisdiction, state has jurisdiction. Who has established jurisdiction first. So that's not clear to me as to where that particular Oklahoma case and Supreme Court decision would be in this case. So in that sense, back down to the real
Yeah,
core
the
as
agenda
to,
item.
Yeah, I've got some questions about this reorganization
Yeah,
plan. Brittany, maybe I can put you on the hot seat here a little bit.
that's fine.
I'm a little confused because we had Kendall as the county attorney. We had Alex as the assistant county attorney. Then you were hired as a part-time
Yes.
attorney,
Yes, part-time.
and we had one secretary in the office. So now it sounds to me like we want to go to a county attorney, assistant county attorney, another full-time attorney, change our secretary to a paralegal. Does that mean then we'll have to hire a secretary to do the secretary work because the paralegal will only do the paralegal work? Or
No.
Anyway,
So
tell me what's
yeah.
going on.
So the paralegal, it would just be all the current duties plus some others. So it wouldn't be two separate positions. It would be one position. Yes.
Paralegal.
Exactly. So they
With a
would
pay
answer the
increase.
phones. So a little bit of a pay increase. So the software that he was talking about that we use. So the secretary, we would have them be more of a prosecutor specialist because that's the software that we use. It's called eProsecutor. And on there, that's where we put all of our discovery. So that's where we put all the police reports, things like that. And then we have to go in there manually and assign an attorney on there when they have put an appearance of counsel or once they're given the public
appointed
defender.
attorney.
Exactly. And then we have to go in and we have to actually send them the discovery. We can't put in the videos on that software because the videos are too long for body cam and things like that. So we have to then upload those onto an email, send those then, and it just takes a lot of time. It's not hard to do it, but it takes a lot of time. And me and Alex do that now ourselves on all the cases that we have. We go in and we assign and we give discovery. So we would want to change some of those things that just take up a lot of our time that could be used throughout there. and given to the paralegal position. So they would be kind of a, like, part of their job description would be that they're discovery technician. So they would be in charge of the discovery and sending it out. And then they would also go in and we have to track, if we have something go out by plea negotiation, we have to go in and manually put in, what was dismissed or what was pled guilty to. And then we have to get in and track what our plea and abeyance is. And we have to track the plea and abeyances and the terms, and we do that all now. So we're just trying to take some of those duties that are more paralegal duties and assign those, but it wouldn't be two separate positions. It would be one position doing all of that with a little bit of a pay increase.
Tell me about the third attorney. That's another full-time position, right? You're taking your part-time position and making it another full-time position.
I think that our office could use that. I think that we would have enough workload to have 3 full-time attorneys in there. I think that we easily have the workload to do that.
I'm just telling you, from the county standpoint, every office can use another employee. I mean, the road department, they're down. Mental health, they could use another therapist. Everybody can use a therapist. What we have to decide as a county commission and administration, can we afford that?
And that's part of like using the TRT funds for that, I think is helpful. Just looking at, we ran some quick numbers, and just from the last 2.5 years, we've had about 1,500 cases. 700 of those came from tourist cases. And we excluded any addresses that were like Kayenta that weren't necessarily local themselves, but within the area. And we didn't include anybody who had a Utah address, whether they were way far up north or not. And so that was just, that's half of the cases right there are all tourists.
A part-time position and change it to full-time. Now they're on full benefits. They get sick leave, they get vacation, they get all of the benefits at that point. So what's the overall impact of changing the part-time position to a full-time position? Do you have any idea?
I don't have the numbers
Okay.
right in front of me right now, but
We ought to know that before we're going to do anything, Mac.
So you'd be going from around so full time you're up in the 36,000.
We all agree Brittany
on
was
there.
underpaid as part-time.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, totally.
Now she's in the right spot.
Totally. Yep. So you're looking at, I think the beginning,
Just-
if when I looked at that, you're at
Just start.
64,000 on the low end, and that was a Emery County comp 2 years
And
ago.
so that means with benefits, it's an overall expense of about 90.
Yes. Yep.
90,000.
Exactly.
And so
Yeah.
I don't want to disclose what Brittany was getting paid, but let's just assume
Half of that.
we had an employee that was part-time.
Yeah.
Would,
Be half of the
was she
60.
making half of the 90 or half of the 60?
Well, it'd be half of the 90 if you include all of the benefits and
As a
retirement.
part-time employee.
Well, no, it's all right. Part-time, she was just half of that, half
she
of the
was just
60.
maybe making,
part-time I was half
the
of the
60.
60.
you're making what?
Half of the 60.
Okay, so around 30,000.
30,000.
So we're going from 30,000
To the 60.
to 90,000
Yeah, because of the benefits.
with the benefits.
Yes.
So
is true.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be rude or ignorant.
Yeah.
We're related. We can talk about this. I just think we need to be sure that we have the money to do this. And if we have the money to do it, and we're not going to blow up every other department in the county by doing this, I'm not going to be hard.
And something else just to add to it, so right now Alex is not a salary employee, he's an hourly employee. So we would
Alex is?
yes, and so we would change that as well to make all of our employees except the paralegal would be an hourly, I believe, but the attorneys in the office, we would make them salary, so then you wouldn't be paying
As an
overtime on
elected
that.
official, are you salaried?
Yes.
You're salaried.
Yes.
And so when January comes, you'll go back to hourly?
No,
Alex will be.
I would go back to salary. All of the
Salary.
attorneys will be salary.
They're all salary.
They're going to be. Right now they're
Essentially.
not, but they're going. We would like to
That's
go
part of the
salary.
reorganization.
That would help mitigate some of the costs of paying for an attorney
Does
because
that have a plus or minus effect on it?
Well, I would certainly say it's a minus because now he takes a pay cut. So because we overwork him. I
If-
mean, he's been a
if-
workhorse. and he's
But
got
when
all
he
these
gets,
hours.
when he becomes the county attorney, then he's salaried at a higher salary
salaried at
than
the
what he's
elected,
making right now.
at the elected pay, but then that other position, all of them by Utah code were supposed to be salary positions, and they haven't been.
So is Brittany salaried right now
She
Yes.
is, and if you
based on
remember
what
when-
Kendall was making?
Yes, yep, the elected official pay. And then, so if you remember when we bumped Alex into interim, we changed his position to salary. But once he took off that interim hat, we had to go back to hourly. And I mean, we work him, and he's put in a lot of overtime hours, and so he would actually take a pay cut by fixing his salary.
but where we have it now, I would say that we'd take it to salary once we refill that position, not
Yeah,
not immediately.
and you
But
did,
with a new attorney at going to salary, which was what your old position was, from part-time to full-time, that's a $60,000 impact. And then what's the impact of our secretary / paralegal? And are we gonna have to get her training to be that paralegal, or?
It would be on the job training. So for that position, we were thinking that it would either be a 4-year degree, 2 years of paralegal experience, or experience to qualify. So Denise, who is the secretary now, would have the experience to qualify, and then we'd just do on the job
She's been there
training.
for a while, hasn't she?
She's been there for a really
awesome.
long time.
Yeah.
From on the job training.
Yep. So we would just do on the job training. We would just tell her what to do. There are some paralegal conferences that you can send people to, but it's not mandatory. And then once she left the position, then we would just have her train somebody, and then we could also help train.
What are you looking at as far as increase in that position? What's the overall impact?
so that position goes up. If you were to look just at the legal secretary itself, when you run the comps on there, that can go up to $28 an hour. She's well below that $28 an hour. She's just barely over entry level for a legal secretary, and so there would have to be a bump on there. Typically, when you do a promotion and things like that, it's around 9% on average is what you'd move people to. We'd have to look to see if that 9% weighs into that, but you're looking around that to push her into that. And a lot of it is
So
you
are we
can't.
looking at like a $5 an hour increase or a $10 an hour? I mean, we're basing this on 2,080 hours, right?
Yeah. So she'd be,
What we were thinking somewhere around, like it would be a $4 to $6 increase.
yeah,
to
so you're
6.
around 5.
Okay, let's times it by 5 then. That's $10,000 increase on 2,080 hours. A $5 an hour increase is $10,000. So if we're having a $60,000 impact in the attorney position and a $10,000 impact, so we're looking at about $70,000 increase in that budget. Can we take 70,000 out of TRT and put it in that in the attorney's office? I get.
Guys,
You don't have to answer that right now.
It's a hypothetical.
I'm just trying to understand.
Yes,
I'm
you can.
slow. I'm
Washington County.
old and slow, Tammy.
Yeah, so the legislators did approve more mitigation where you can mitigate more money to these type of areas from TRT. But what that does is just shifts
Yeah.
the peanut from your marketing and the things that Elaine is doing and pushes it.
And
to
and
that.
Elaine's
So,
on board with this.
well, we'd
No,
have to run the numbers. I think she's
talked
pretty
to her.
good. Oh, really? She said no. On the mitigation side of it, I mean, in the past, we've taken landfill money, we've taken road money, we've taken sheriff money.
Yeah,
So-
I'm okay. I'm
It's
just
just reducing it.
I'm just trying to look at what kind of possible problems we're going to create by doing this.
Yeah. Yep.
And I know the solutions in Brittany's mind are great.
Mhm.
And I mean, in my mind, actually, Brittany, I'm not saying you don't need it, but I talked to Mac last week about the needs of every employee in the county,
There's a lot.
and what they're
There's a lot.
making,
Yep.
and they're all underpaid.
Yeah. Yes.
So anyway, Willie, you making enough?
I don't know. My travel there takes most of it.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
That travel is expensive.
Well, just some questions that I have in my mind that I think I want to think about it. I wouldn't want to take an action today. Of course, we can't. Or is it on the agenda?
No, it's not on the agenda. This is just a work session discussion
Okay.
to get your guys' take on it.
But
A
I
little
but
bit
I
of
think the
feedback.
biggest priorities
Sell me
right
on it,
now
Brittany.
I think the biggest priorities right now is to change that paralegal change to that
That's your
paralegal position
top priority.
and then hire another attorney as soon as we can and try to get to that better pay scale.
You couldn't get along for a while with a part-timer. You probably
Well,
couldn't find one, huh?
I don't think we can find one. I don't think that when I was
We found you the mom.
That's true. I was a mom with little kids and fresh out of law school. But finding people to move down here who want to be down here, it's a hard sell when you don't have the money to back it up. And I don't think that we can. And I like Mac, we can't compete with these. Orem posted a job the other day where it's just Class B misdemeanors, city prosecutor for over $100,000. And I know we can't
You're
appeal to that.
But Javen's not.
Yeah. No, I don't want to live up there either. And that's the exchange we have in the appeal that we have is, hey, you don't get the money that you get out there, but you get to live in God's country. And down here, it's beautiful and it's a small town feel. But housing prices have gone up. I mean, inflation's gone up, and so it's hard. Exactly. Sometimes you can't. And so it's nice to just have that little bit incentive to get somebody to come, especially people who don't know this area as much, and to get somebody to say, hey, come live down in Southern Country. We haven't even heard of that. To then say, okay, well, we'll pay you this much, and right out of law school, we'll get them to bite, and then they'll move down here, and they'll love it like everybody else, and then we'll get them that way.
Nobody from San Juan High is in school to be an attorney right now?
Oh, we do have somebody who just went to Texas Tech, but he's just barely starting, so he's at least 3 years out, and we can't wait that long. We need help sooner than that. So,
What is the caseload?
what is the caseload? So last year for justice court cases and district court cases, we ended at 645.
But overall, it was 1,500, wasn't it?
That was for the last 2.5 years what we had.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the last 2.5 years. So last year alone, it was 645. That was the year to date. We don't have,
So 645,
and that's
2 a day.
the court cases that we actually filed. That's not all the cases that we actually screened. If officers came to us with cases, I don't know what the year to date is on that. We haven't ran the new numbers for up to this year. But some of those cases, I mean, we declined to prosecute, or they just,
In comparison to similar counties. Caseload,
we're higher in caseload. If you look at Grand County, there's the closest county that we have. We're higher in caseload, and we are 5 people understaffed
Compared to Grand County.
compared to Grand County. And then if you look at, I have it here. If you look at Emory County, we are still 1 person understaffed. For Kane County, we are 2 people understaffed. Sevier County, we're still 1 person understaffed. But our caseload, For Emery County, I don't have the final number for them of August of last year, though. We were at 224 in August of last year, and they were at 112. So we had over 100 cases more than them as of August of last year, with less people in the office working.
Now the
So these counties that are closer to us, how would you rate the quality of attorneys compared to San Juan?
crappy.
I won't even have to say just from my mouth, but from several people, we are defense attorneys love working with our office because we get things out and we get them the information. It's not a headache, it's easy. And we function very well with the attorneys we have. So we are way better than the others. I'm bragging for us, but it's not just from my mouth. It's from
Well, I don't disagree.
several others.
Now we get a revenue off of prosecution, right?
Yes.
Okay.
think so.
So
I don't
there is a
know.
revenue with the justice courts and everything.
I don't know where all the
and
money
the
goes
sheriff's side.
once we take it.
So there is that, but yeah, definitely worth their weight in gold. And what she didn't mention in there is the assistance with staff, as well as they're doing all of this over here, but they're also reviewing all of our contracts, resolutions, ordinances, coming up with new contracts, coming up with new policies and procedures. You know, this last year, Alex alone has saved us well over $60,000 in just reviewing our land use ordinance and, you know, going through that with a fine tooth legal comb. Those hours add up, and it's
And
been
attending
savings.
commission.
And attending commission meetings, absolutely.
And I mean, he's taken on a lot of the civil stuff that in the past has been outsourced to more attorneys. And so just by easing up some of the workload, then we can take on more of those civil cases that our office can handle, which saves the county a lot of money in the end. I know it's asking money up front, but if you look at the overall picture, it actually will save a lot of money if we can disperse that workload a little bit.
You're saying that with hiring another attorney, we actually in the end run get more money because of what we're doing in that office?
I think so, absolutely.
And
I think
that comes back.
it's just you're putting your best out there to defend the county, and at any time you have overworked county attorneys, are they always putting their best foot forward? Well, on an HR perspective, employees aren't, and so they literally cannot get to all of their tasks right now, to where, you know, they've reached out to me several times like, okay, Mac, we need another attorney. Can you push this through USIP and see if we can get some other legal help? And we have, you know, during this last year, we've reached out to Kane County on multiple fronts. What you also don't see here is the appeals. We have a lot of land use appeals that are going through our attorney law, or ALJ, so the attorney law judge that we have, or administrative law judge. As we push those through, somebody still has to defend the county and the county's actions. Well, that's another court process that's saving us from going to district court, because we have this ALJ system. But we've had to farm a lot of that out to King County this past year, just because of the workload, and knowing with the loss of Kendall, Alex stepping in to fill in those shoes, as well as Brittany, who we've had to seek other help. So it's going somewhere. So it's not like they're not doing their jobs and they're not trying to stay within the workload. They can't. They seriously cannot do it. You're paying Alex overtime hours to make ends meet, and you just can't continue to go that way and expect the attorneys to be on their A game throughout everything. There's just no way.
Do we need to have additional discussion with Alex? Not that Brittany hasn't covered everything, but
Yeah, Alex has
Before
that
we-
institutional knowledge. Yeah,
is he around today, or is he?
he's in court today, I believe.
He's in court.
I think he has juvenile court today.
That's why you can be here, huh? Because he's in court.
He does the juvenile court, so
Okay.
that's usually on Tuesdays.
Well, I don't know. We might want to
Yeah, we can bring him in.
one involving,
I agree.
you know, before we finalize this. I don't know. What do you want to do, Willie?
I think the recommendation is good. I think the overload seems like the department and the paralegal secretary / secretary. That seems to be an idea, but I don't have any. Is,
Alex did.
well, I guess the only question is
Alex said he
the
can come over.
TRT.
Do you want
He
him over?
can.
Do you want him over here right now?
He says, I just
Should I
finished.
tell him
can
to
come
run?
over. Tell him to run.
Well, my problem
Run,
is I've got that
Forrest.
10 o'clock
Oh, you do?
briefing,
Huh?
and
And it's almost 10.
But I don't think that'll.
We can reschedule this, come back with some final,
Yeah.
just final costs of what it would look like in total. And then we can analyze, part of it, maybe it's not a full-time, maybe it's, you go back to the part-time. I just know that we were lucky
won't
to
find
get Brittany.
anybody part-time.
We found the
Yeah,
mom,
lucky.
and now she's full-time, and it's, how do you get somebody?
Let me go to this briefing, and if I get out of it fairly early, maybe we can call him over. And
Okay.
is that all right?
Yeah.
'Cause I've
It'll
gotta
be
get on
tight.
that thing at 10, and it's
Okay.
3 minutes to do that. So I'll be in the other room, Willie.
Okay.
Anne Marie, did you find Maryboy? Was he? Did you?
I sent him the call-in stuff and I sent him the agenda, but I have not.
Okay.
Take a break.
Take a break. 10-minute break.
Is the meeting going to continue, Mac?
I would posit we lost a quorum, which is why I asked questions.